alive! We did it. I don't wanna. Alright, chapter 12. This might take me a while to settle into. Lily was given a sedative and placed in the violent ward of the hospital for the night. They kept her there for a few days, then told Carl that they would either transfer her to a state mental hospital or he could put her in a private one. He put her in an expensive and luxurious private hospital. Mira thought about it. She concluded it was all Lily's fault. Mira remembered Lily pushing Carlos away, peeling him off her body. Remembered Lily giving him cookies when he would not eat lunch. Remembered Lily's wild complaints and impossible demands. She pressed Carl for money for clothes, went to the bargain shop, bought something, bringing it home, saying it wasn't much. In fact, it was crap, but with her sewing machine she could turn it into something fine. She would cut and sew in peace and end up ripping it to shreds. No, in Mira's judgment, and judgment then meant apportionment of praise and blame, or rather, blame and blamelessness, Carl had done everything he could. He was kind and tolerant, and Lily was mad. It was all understandable, of course. Lily was insane because of her childhood, but she wasn't clearly insane. Minute. After some months, Lily got out of the hospital. Mira didn't even know it until Lily called one day. Mira could not see her that day, or that week in fact. She was spring cleaning. She visited Lily the next week. They had coffee and discussed clothes. Lily kept trying to break in, to tell Mira of the horror of shock treatments after her terrified letters, help written in lipstick on toilet paper, plastered on her windows until the nurse came in and found it, or notes dropped from the window on the heads of visitors on Sundays, or her frenzied pleas to Carl to get her out whenever he visited. Mira smiled, nodded. Of course. She did not visit Lily soon again. She saw almost no one. She was busy with her housework, chauffeuring the boys, with the PTA and a bridge club of doctors' wives, and with their social life, which had become very formal. Other people entertained 20 for a sit-down dinner and had a maid and a butler. Mira had to do the same without help. She learned how. She was busy. Occasionally, there would come a phone call. Sean had abandoned Oriane in the Bahamas, simply disappeared with all funds, and left her there with the 3 kids, a rented house, and 2 unpaid-for boats. She had to appeal to the governor of the island, to the American embassy or whatever it was. They had paid airfare for her and the kids to the States. She was staying with Martha. Paula had divorced her rich man and was working as a medical receptionist somewhere, trying to support herself and her children. Teresa had gone mad with her 8th child, had drowned it in the bath, and was now in the state mental hospital. The phone calls came from another world. They had nothing to do with her. Out there, all was chaos. Her world was orderly, clean and shining. It was also, and to do her credit, it must be admitted, she knew it, mean and small and angry. The boys snarled at each other. She snarled at them for every violated towel. Norm was mostly absent, and when he was there, it was clear that he felt that everything there must contribute to his pleasure or be damned. He was supporting the whole thing, wasn't he? It was his sweat, his unfreedom that kept it all going, wasn't it? So it all had to contribute to his pleasure, or he roared, he damned, he consigned to the prison of their rooms the underminers of his plan. Mira was fall cleaning. Fall cleaning? Fuck. Spring is enough. Sorry. Mira was fall cleaning when John Kennedy was killed. She heard it on the radio and did not believe it. She had voted for him over Norm's extreme opposition. The difference in their votes had caused the worst fight they'd had in years. It was not possible that he was dead. She hung on the radio. Reports varied. He was dead. He wasn't. He was. Mira remembered when Marilyn Monroe killed herself. Somehow the 2 events fit together in her mind. She didn't understand how. Images, she thought. She mourned. She neglected her house cleaning to watch television depictions of the funeral, of Jackie Kennedy's stoic strength, of Charles de Gaulle walking behind the horse-drawn funeral carriage. She even managed to smile at the thought of Charles de Gaulle walking in horseshit. Life went on. A phone call came. Sean had divorced Oriane, or gotten her to agree to a divorce. He was willing to pay $10,000 a year to support her and the 3 children, an opulent settlement compared to what most divorced women get, but not enough in those opulent times to support 4 people. Sean bought himself a small estate on the water in East Hampton and moved his mistress in. One afternoon, in a spirit of loneliness and lifelessness, Mira went to visit Lily. The mechanical face Lily had worn at Mira's last visit was gone, but Mira was not prepared for the new one. Lily was old. She was the same age as Mira, 34, but she looked, well, anything actually. You could not name an age for her. You could only say she was old. She was terribly thin, even haggard. Her hair had grown out and was a number of colours. Dark at the roots for a couple of inches, dark interspersed with grey, getting red, then paler toward the end. Lily was wearing a thin cotton house dress with no belt. She looked like a maidservant in some primitive village, underfed, overworked, used to blows of despair. Mira stood appalled. The visual image of Lily had more potency than any words. All her rationalizations, her explanations, her condemnations vanished. If this was how Lily looked, this was how Lily was. Suddenly, she believed in the misery of Lily's existence, felt it perhaps. It was stark fact and beyond judgment, apportionment of blame, appearance of rectitude. It required no justification, no explanation. It simply was. Lily poured coffee with a shaking hand and forgot the milk. When their coffee was almost drunk, she leaped up and unboxed a cake she had bought especially for Mira. I forgot, she said anxiously. One more thing. Look at me. Look at what they've done to me, Lily said, but her speech sounded like a song, like wailing controlled and brought into form. She held out her hands. They were almost orange, and Mira noticed then that Lily's face too was jaundiced. They have me jaundiced with their pills, Lily sang. They have me oozing. Feel my hands. They were slippery moist. My whole body oozes sweat. I shake all the time. I hate them, those doctors. They don't care what they do to you as long as they can get you out of their office. I'm just a crazy woman. What do they care about me? Mira, I cut down the dosage, but I don't dare stop taking them. I can't go back there. Mira, it will kill me. It will drive me crazy. Mira stood and walked over to the cabinet and pulled open a drawer, searching for cake forks. Lily didn't notice. Mira was shocked by the jumble of things thrown in the drawer. She rummaged through, and found some forks. Carl says I can't do anything right. I don't know, Mira. I try. I clean and clean and clean. If I don't, they'll send me back. And I can't stand it, Mira. It's torture. It's medieval. You wouldn't believe what they do to you. Now my memory is gone. Every time Carl came, I begged him to get me out of there, and he kept saying, "It's all right, kid. It'll be all right." He did nothing. Nothing. He didn't care what they were doing to me. Every day they come and get you and take you to that room, and they strip you naked, stark naked, Mira, as if you were nothing. And they throw you down on the table and tie you down, Mira. They strap you to it. And they give you this shock. Oh, it's terrible. It's such a violation. They don't care what they do to you. You don't matter. You're just a crazy woman. You have no dignity. Lily had picked at her cake with her fork, but hadn't eaten it. It was a mess of crumbs on her plate. Her face was wrenched. There was a terrible line between her eyes, and the eyes themselves stared out as if they still looked at horror. Her whole face was strained. The lines around her mouth looked as though they had been drawn with black pencil by a makeup man, and the skin was stretched tautly across her cheekbones. So I come home, and I try. I know they'll send me back if I don't. But Carl, what does he do? All he does is sit in that chair in front of the TV set. I ask him, I beg him to take us out on the weekend, on a picnic or a camping trip, something. The kids are growing up and we never do anything together. You need a family. It should be a home. All he says is that if I keep it up, he'll move back into that room over the garage. What difference would it make? One less body cluttering up the family home. He comes home at night like a Nazi. He comes in here and stands in the doorway and says, oh, he's so cold, like a drill sergeant. Lily, why aren't the dishes dried? What's the point of drying dishes? They dry by themselves.
Yes!
But then I have to run and dry them, or else I have to argue with him. I have to say I didn't have time, or that I didn't want to dry them. It's silly to dry them, and then we're in an argument, and I'm always wrong. It doesn't matter what I do or what I say. I'm in the wrong before I begin. I don't know how it happens. She was mashing the crumbs in the plate into a paste. Mira watched her. Mira's mind was suspended. She felt as if she were in the deep seas on a raft. I forgot to wash his socks. They're dark, and I didn't want to put them in with the whites, you know? And there were only a few, and I forgot to do a separate load. Is that crazy? Is that so terrible? He acted like I was ready to be carted away. He was livid. He could hardly move his lips. His mouth was so tight. So I said I'd wash them by hand, and he said to leave. He only had half an hour, so I said, wear your white socks, they're clean. And he acted as if I had hit him or something. Or he could have worn dirty socks, couldn't he, Mira? Am I so crazy? So I washed them by hand, and he's parading around the house, acting as though there were a knife sticking out of his back. And I got so flustered, I put the socks in the oven to dry. Then Carlos threw a tantrum. Oh, I don't know, he didn't want a soft-boiled egg, something like that. And I forgot the socks, and they burned in the oven. What a smell. She began to giggle. Burned socks. Have you ever? Now she was really laughing with delight. Tears streamed down her face. You should have seen Carl's face. Lily's movements were jerky and sudden, but not always directed. She jumped up to get more coffee, but then when she was up, she hovered, seemingly unsure of why she had risen. She kept talking. I think men are dead. You know, they have no life. I read all the magazines, I watch all the TV shows, the women's panels, you know. Those women are so wonderful, they have so much strength, such vitality. Do you know Mary Gibson? She's great. She's saying how she flunks all the tests. I do too. The tests in the magazines, you know. Score yourself on how good a wife you are, how good a mother, how feminine. I always flunk them. Mary said she thinks it's the fault of the tests. Lily announced this as some outrageous, delightful piece of arrogance, laughing as she said it. I love her. You ought to watch her. She's on at 10 o'clock. And then there's Catherine Carson. She's divorced and she really knows the score. Lily chattered on about her television friends, for that is, Mira thought, what they were, and probably the only friends she had. Oh, they saved me, Lily. They saved my sanity. I know he wants to drive me back there, but I'm not going to let him do it. I won't. I won't, she ended, stubborn, recalcitrant as ever. Her chin jutted out, and those terrible eyes stared at some fire in the distance, and beneath the shapeless house dress, her thin body tightened and looked hard and angular as steel. Alright, if we want a quick breather from that chapter. Have a quick drink. How, can you hear it well enough? Can you hear all right, Ruth? Yeah. I'm okay. So, yeah. Oh no, I pushed the bad button. Come back. Oh dear.
Can I have a quick look at the book? I'd just like to have a look at the very last bit before the previous chapter, because it seemed to come out of nowhere for me.
A bunch of kids half-hung her son, and then she got hysterical and got carted off to the
Oh
ring
my
again.
god.
That was that sequence of events.
Oh, did I miss one?
No. I don't think so. No. Yeah, it would have been the last one out here, and you ended up reading for me for a while, I think.
8 years old and walked to the corner store and getting it out.
Yeah, I don't want to hear that bit again. We skipped it.
Yeah. Oh.
We skipped like a couple of pages and glossed over the fact that a group of kids half hung the son. Okay. And then we went back to the reaction when we got home. Alright.
none. It was Mira who said, I think you better take her to the hospital. Her fault.
Oh yes, nice. We're back to her group of friends talking about it. We'll wait. Just like a glance through the page, and just like different words popping out. It's like, yeah, this is way more familiar.
Yeah.
Bit of fucking comic relief and fucking friendly politics.
Have you read any Janet Frame?
Yeah, I think so.
Mm-hmm. Oh, no?
No, I don't think so.
Do you know her? Do you know of her? She's one of New Zealand's most famous authors, and she was in the mental hospital at Seacliff, among many others, and she was kind of, I think the general impression, looking back on it, is that she was like driven crazy by those places, and she was just like a,
The product of the institution.
And it was really interesting. I was talking to Jono, who lives out at Seacliff, and Dan's house. And I
just remember that as well.
Oh yeah, and and they sort of mentioned Janet Frame, and she said, "Oh, she's my great aunt," which was pretty amazing. She is an incredible writer. Yeah, she's really good. Although I have read something by hers I wasn't that taken by. I think you have to pick it well. She's kind of Sylvia Plath-esque. And she was just about to get a lobotomy, like the very next day or the same day or something. And one of the nurses happened to read in a newspaper that she had just won an award for a short story collection. And the process got halted. I think it was like the same day or something ridiculous.
Some fucking Hollywood shit, eh?
Yeah.
Alright, there you go. Lucky 13. She hasn't learned the lesson, Martha said in that direct way that managed to combine grimness with humour. Fucking bastards are only telling her one thing. You have not learned to accept your life. And then she had damn well better do it, or they'll have her back in there so fast she won't know what hit her. She's fighting so hard. Fuck it. Adjustment is a thing. When the world is crazy, you had better be crazy along with it, or they'll stick you in the madhouse. Fucking psychiatrists. I'm surprised they didn't try to fuck up more than her mind. Every attractive woman I know who's gone to a shrink, including myself, ended up bare-assed on that couch. Mira had a problem with Martha's language and her directness. But somehow, Martha brought something refreshing into her life. After a conversation with Martha, Mira felt like she had a little more room to breathe. But sometimes, she felt like a voyeur on Martha's life. Really? What happened? Martha recounted it easily, laughing at the psychiatrist's line, laughing at the ease with which she had swallowed it, laughing at her own expectations. I knew he was a turd, but I adored him. Transference, you know? So I figured this was my chance. If I screwed him, it might happen. I might finally make it to orgasm. She laughed heartily. He was such a klutz. My God, I don't think he understood the first thing about a woman's body. But I imagine he thinks he did me a great favour. Physical therapy, you know? They're all convinced that the sacred prick can solve all ills, and I'm quite willing to believe that, being a worshipper of the sacred prick myself. The only problem is, I still have to find one that's sacred. Mira felt her lips purse. Well, Martha, I don't know what you're saying, but when Lily got out of that hospital, I thought that because of her bad feelings about men, it might be a good idea for her to go to a woman psychiatrist. And I talked to Newton Donaldson about it. Norm's psychiatrist friend, you know? And he said that would be the worst thing in the world. He acted really shocked. He said that would lead to homosexuality. Oh, he did? And did you ask him what happens when male patients go to male psychiatrists? No, Mira said uneasily. No, Martha cackled back at her. Of course not. You just took his word as the word of God, the way you took Norm's. You should hear yourself. Norm said this, Norm said that. The great God, Norm. She sat back laughing, waving her drink around. Sometimes Mira felt a very strong dislike for Martha. How's school? She asked tightly. Martha giggled. Getting too hot for you, huh? Okay. She launched into a discussion of how school was, and although she was talking only about herself and the people she met, and the structure she had entered into, Mira felt just as uncomfortable as she had when Martha talked about her, Mira's life. She wondered if she was masochistic, if that was why she held on to Martha. Martha did slash and jab, but Mira knew that was not it. Martha was a touchstone. She had an unfailing shit detector. She did not pick up every truth, but she picked up every lie. It was, she said, because she had been such a liar all her life. I lied my way from kindergarten to 12th grade, successfully, so now I know the creature where I meet it. And with anything except lies, she was generous. She listened, and she tried to see, only that, to see. She did not have immediate slots for all behaviour. Lily's crazy, Carl ought to put his foot down, Natalie's a whore, Paul's a bastard, the kind of thing Norm came up with as the final significance of every event. If someone said to Martha, I feel so useless, she would not, like most people, immediately answer, why should you feel like that? That's silly. Of course you're not useless, or stupid, or inadequate, or wrong, or whatever it was. She would just say, why? And listen to the why, and try to see how that felt. One could trust Martha to challenge one's lies, and yet not to deny one's reality. That made Martha very rare. Still, she made Mira uneasy. She broke all the rules, and she got away with it. Years ago, Mira had envied Martha the easy way she could curse out George and to tell him what a klutz she was, and the easy way he could laugh at her attacks, crying out laughing. I know, I know. Yet when everyone else condemned George for a coward and a lecher, Martha shrugged off the world's judgment and supported him. She had done the best thing possible under the circumstances. He had done the best thing possible under the circumstances. She could talk about going to law school and either not notice or not care that the people around her regarded her as deranged and deluded. And going back to college had given Martha confidence and authority in spheres other than the personal. This was especially difficult for Mira, who had always seen herself as the intellectual in every group. Martha had entered into not just a new sphere, but one larger than the one women usually occupied. At the university, relations were professional, feelings were the same, but rules were different. The politics of the Café Clatch. Do we know this word?
No.
Cool. Oh, crap. If similar in nature, were more personal. If similar in nature, were more personal in reference to the politics of the classroom, the dean's office, the student-teacher conference. When Martha talked about this, her description had a verve and odd humour of the one kid in the neighbourhood who has been permitted to venture off the block, or the one villager who has returned to tell the others about the big city. School was great and terrible, wonderful and awful, but it was exciting. And there was a double challenge of crossing lines. Martha's French professor had, after a conference on her term paper, invited her out for drinks. He was tall and tanned, a skier. His name was David. They had laughed a lot, and he had let his large brown eyes wash over her. One evening after class, she went up to ask him a question. They talked for a while, and again he invited her out for drinks. This came to be a habit, every Tuesday evening. One Tuesday, he suggested a dinner, and since George was out of town, and she had only a cup of soup before class, Martha accepted. In time, the suggestions moved further. Martha was perturbed. Today was Monday, and she had promised to give him an answer the next night. Okay. He's really cute, a real doll, you know, and I like him a lot, even if he isn't as smart as he imagines he is. And of course, it flatters me that he should pick me out of a class full of girls a hell of a lot younger and thinner than I am. but the politics of it bothers me. If I screw him and I get an A for the course, I always feel, not that I didn't earn the A, I know I did, but that I'm subject to the accusation that I earned it on my back. I don't like that. Why not tell him that? Yeah, that's it. I'll ask him to wait until the term is over, and if he's still interested, then we'll see. Yeah, that's it. She left, cheerful, busy, confident. Mira sat. Her mind felt like a red sea, swirling and hot as fire, liquid fire. She understood for the first time what it meant to be consumed with jealousy. Martha was perturbed. Martha had problems. But what problems? It was not just that Martha had such an attractive-sounding man and interested in her. It was not even that she was accomplishing something, getting a degree and making plans for law school. It was that Martha, who up till a couple of years ago had been confined to the same narrow circle Mira inhabited, now felt ease and confidence in that larger world, that she could move through it without terror, that she could go so far as to let herself in for difficulties by going out for drinks with David, by risking that the acquaintance might turn sexual, and felt able to deal with it even after it had. It staggered Mira. She felt deeply that it took some special qualities to move out of the little circle, and whatever they were, courage, confidence, energy, resiliency, she did not possess them. She sat that night, and many nights after, considering. She felt ashamed, a coward. She remembered her teacher's high estimate of her intellect and abilities, the way an aged athlete might remember the touchdown that had won the trophy for his high school team. Her childhood ambitions rose again in her memory. She brushed them away, but they stuck like threads of cobweb that had trapped in a shred of broken plaster, even as he tried to dust them off. Above all, she had to get rid of the jealousy. It was too painful. So she sat with 2, then 3, and even sometimes 4 brandies, watching the moon weave through the clouds, and applied her mind to the subject of human effort. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. What did it all mean in the end? She reminded herself that what gets called accomplishment in the world is often meretricious, and even when it is not, it is futile. All the works of men's hand and mind come to dust in the end. Consider, for instance, how much time and concentration it must have taken to come up with the idea of the lever, or what a stroke of imaginative brilliance had been required to come up with the notion of putting those little green leaves around the meat as you roasted it. Everything was so hard and took so long. Mira remembered writing papers in school, spending months reading, thinking hard, coming up with a conclusion that seemed astoundingly original and perceptive, only to run across it a year later in an essay published before she was born. What did it cost to build a kingdom, an empire, only to have it in time disappear like Mari beneath a nameless desert? People violated their insides by murdering others by sword or gun, poison or starvation, to set up a dynasty that would fall in a year or 10 or 100. What difference did the extra zeros make when the thing was doomed to fall sometime? It was men who did these things, pompous and self-aggrandizing. They tried to erect permanently in the outside world symbols of the penile erection they could not maintain in their flesh. Delusion, hideous delusion to what they had sacrificed millions of less insane humans. The great god Norm. Was it true she quoted him like a god? She could remember when she thought him less intelligent than herself. What had happened? He had moved from frightened boy to authoritative man, but she knew she was still as hollow as ever. Still, she had allowed his position to dictate hers. Suppose now she moved, slid out from under him, saying, "I'm not comfortable here." What was the point? What was to be gained? She would cause suffering to others and herself, and for what? Did she dare disturb the universe? And if she succeeded in extricating herself, then what? She might have the excitement and joy Martha seemed to be living with, but everything in Mira told her there was only one direction for that excitement and joy: increasing loneliness. You could break society's rules, and you might even get away with it, but after such success, what return? Forever and forever you would be alone. Perhaps then you could make great art, or good art. But for what? In a world where poems are used to start fires, and paintings are bombed off walls, where libraries are destroyed and monuments crumble, and even the art that survives is just so much dead stone, sitting in a room in a museum where no one goes because they don't understand what they are looking at. Would it matter to the people of 1964 if Beowulf had simply vanished forever? Would the world be different? Life passed. The trees changed colour. The flowers bloomed and died. The air was soft and chafing. The best one could do was sit and watch them and take pleasure in the inevitable one could not change. This was what women did. It was women who kept the world going, who observed the changing seasons and kept the beauty high. Women who cleaned the world's house, who kept the cobwebs off the windows so that people could keep on seeing out. Enduring continuation, the hard lot. No one pinned medals on you or gave you honorary degrees. You didn't get to wear fancy costumes and walk in processions. Your bust would never be set up in any hall of greats. But it was her task. The rest was the sound of puny voices raised against the wind. That winter and spring, Mira developed a serenity, a calm transcendence that shone from her face. People praised her for looking well, and she felt somehow blessed. She had, for all her confusion and unhappiness over the years, attained harmony and grace with herself and her life. Adjustment, Martha would have called it, but it felt tinged with divinity. She felt more feminine. She could sit silent at parties, listening to the men talk, smiling at them with tolerance and benevolence, instead of arguing and having to assert herself. Men moved toward her like a magnet. She felt beloved. Somehow, she thought, she had managed to make the right choices. She had escaped the old continuing pain. She felt like one of the elect, and unconsciously she believed that, having now attained this grace, she would never lose it. She had achieved not just grace, but invulnerability. End of 13.
Yes. Because it seems odd how Mira had such insight when she was young. She was pretty spectacular. And then she sort of, let the world tempt her down and into a mold.
I love that line where it's like, years later she looked back and realised by 15 she'd like basically decided all the things she believed were true in the world.
Yeah.
Just had to find out she forgot them along the way and had
Yeah,
to find
yeah,
out the
yeah.
hard way.
Yeah.
That's just, I fucking love that quote. Continue on. I think I need a bit of water. I'm not doing very good at listening to him.
Yeah, we should leave it there. I think it's one of those nights. I think he's been finding it hard to read, and I feel like I've heard as much as my attention span will take me. We were both thinking that that's a good place to leave it for tonight.
Oh, yeah. Cool. And we're done.